welcome to your favourite teacher. Today we're looking at English language GCSE and how to achieve top marks using your reading and writing skills. So for this video, you're going to need to download the Jamaica In resource. Question 2 is often called the language question, giving you a big hint about what you're meant to pay attention to when answering it. However, thinking that you're just looking for interesting language choices means that you're missing out on one of the important skills needed to be able to answer this question well. Question 2 is worth 8 of a total 80 marks for language paper 1, and it's recommended that you answer the question in 10 minutes. The question will guide you to look at a specific range of lines from the source, so make sure any of the interesting language you're looking for comes from these few lines. A lot of the skills which help you to find the important information are covered in our video on question 1. So if you're not confident about being able to extract important information or don't know the difference between explicit and implicit information, that might be a good place to start. In the rest of the video, we'll look at how to approach the question, what to look for, and how best to write your answers. The clue about how to answer this question is usually in the question itself and how it's been phrased. In this case, the question we're going to tackle is, how does the writer use language here to describe the effects of the weather? And we're told to look in lines 8 to 18 of the source. You're also going to be given a few bullet points which appear after the question. They'll tell you to include the writer's choice of words and phrases, language features and techniques, and sentence forms. Now, there are a few hints in the way the question is phrased which tell us how to most effectively answer it. When answering this question, you need to consider what decisions the author has made when writing this portion of the text. What words did they use? What images did they want to create? And to be able to discuss why they have used these language choices. You should also consider the aim. What is the desired effect? So don't just think of this as the language question. Instead, you should think about it as the language choices question. Now, let's have a read through of the indicated lines and try and think about the author's choices for the weather. The wind came in gusts, at times shaking the coach as it travelled round the bend of the road, and in the exposed places on the high ground it blew with such force that the whole body of the coach trembled and swayed, rocking between the high wheels like a drunken man. The driver, muffled in a grey coat to his ears, bent almost double in his seat in a faint endeavour to gain shelter from his own shoulders, while the dispirited horses plodded suddenly to his command, too broken by the wind and rain to feel the whip that now and again cracked above their heads, while it swung between the numb fingers of the driver. The wheels of the coach creaked and groaned as they sank into the ruts on the road, and sometimes they flung up the soft splattered mud against the windows, where it mingled with the constant driving rain, and whatever view there might have been of the countryside was hopelessly obscured. Paying attention to the question is key because it asks us how the author chooses to describe the effects of the weather, not just on how they choose to describe the weather. These are two very different things. It wouldn't be right for us to talk about how the wind was powerful because it came in gusts, or that it had such a force, even though these are very good quotes, because they are simply about the weather and not about its effects. So stay focused. However, here we do have something that helps us infer about the effects of the weather. Maybe the powerful weather could be called frightening. This inference helps us to answer what the author's choices were when writing this section. If we choose to quote gusts and it blew with such a force, it might be good to also have a quote which shows the effect of those gusts' force. In this extract, we can pick up on words like shaking as well as trembled and swayed, used to describe the effect the weather has on the bus. Now, when we begin to write our answer, we want to make it very clear what choice the author made and what they wanted us to think about that weather. Like the words trembled and swayed, as well as shaking, might make you think that the coach is frightened because of the weather or in danger because of it. Stating this will be the beginning of our paragraph. In the extract, the author describes the effects of the weather to be very frightening and dangerous. In this answer, the words frightening and dangerous show that we've understood the effect of the author's word choice. Next, we want to make it very clear how the impression of danger and fear has been created through the author's choice. We want to give our evidence and make sure there's some context to explain why it's frightening and dangerous. We'll write through the use of verbs like trembling and swayed, as well as shaking. The author creates an image of a bus as if it's being attacked or threatened by the wind. It's very important to give good short micro quotes like we have here. One word will do just fine, but being able to supply multiple quotes or even just multiple single word choices helps show a range of evidence. However, notice we didn't say that the author has used words like trembling and swayed. We stated that the author used verbs like trembling and swayed. Being able to identify the method and using specific subject terminology is necessary to bump up those grades to the top 2 bands. Using terminology can mean identifying types of personification, metaphors, similes, or any other devices such as these, whether it's just stating a verb, adjective, adverb, or noun, can be effective in showing you understand the English language terminology as well as just the word choice. For each of these pieces of evidence you'll give, you'll also need to explain how the author has been effective in using these words or imagery devices. Explaining the effect of those verbs we choose will go something like this. This sense of threat is created through the use of the verbs trembling and shaking, both of which might be actions to describe someone who is frightened or panicked. In this example, we explain and analyse how the words chosen in our evidence prove the point we originally stated. How do verbs like trembling and shaking show that the weather makes them seem frightened? Well, there's lots of possible ways to phrase this. You can mention what readers infer from those word choices, what image is created, or what the words suggest. In our case, we explained how the words suggested that the coach was acting in a panicked manner. If you're feeling up to it and you've got the time, there's a good chance to link more evidence to this point that you've made. If there's another example of good words which create the same effect you've just talked about, make sure you add them in, as it will help show a range of evidence and that you truly understand the effect the author is trying to create. All in all then, there are just a few easy steps to remember to answer this question effectively. First, pay attention to what the question is asking and look for simple quotes that could prove what effect you think the author is trying to create. Next, state very clearly what you think the author wanted readers to think or feel. Is the setting frightening? Is it mysterious or inspiring? After that, give some very clear, specific pieces of evidence. Mention whether they're nouns, verbs, similes, or an adjective. Finally, explain how the choice the author has made helps prove what you think. Remember, it's all in the explaining. Repeat that with 3 quick, clear explanations and your answer will be solid. I'll just go through an example paragraph then. In the extract, the author describes the effects of the weather to be very frightening and dangerous. Through use of verbs like trembling and swayed, as well as shaking, the author creates an image of the bus as if it's being attacked or threatened by the wind. This sense of a threat is created through the use of verbs trembling and shaking, both of which might be actions to describe someone who is panicked or frightened. Furthermore, the fact that the wind is described as having such a force helps to emphasise how dangerous the weather is, because the word force implies how much power the wind carries. I'm Miss Meeks, and we've been revising the English language GCSE. Good luck.